Okay, now we come to Trigo integration. And before we integrate, you need to know what is the differentiation of my Trigo. Okay, so after you know the differentiation, okay, the opposite will be integration. Basically, these are my integration rules for trigonometry. Okay, integrate cosine x will give me sine x. Integrate sine x will give me negative cosine. Integrate secant square will give me tangent x. The plus c still remains for each case. Okay, of course, this is very simple when my angle is x. So I'm only showing you angle x example here. Now you can think, if the angle is no longer single x, maybe it's kx, 2x, okay, what would it be? Okay, the rule of thumb is that if the angle is kx, we will do the same thing as what we did for the basic integration. We will have to divide by coefficient of x. Let me show you an example. If the angle is no longer x, for example, ax plus b, okay, it means that I have to divide by the coefficient of x later. Okay, so take note, if your trigo angle is linear, and linear meaning power of x is 1, follow these 3 steps. Okay, step 1, I will integrate the trigo term. Okay, step 2 may look familiar to you guys. Okay, I will divide by coefficient of x. Okay, meaning divide by a, divide by a, divide by a. Because my a is the coefficient of x. And don't forget the plus c as the final step. Now let's come to some questions. Okay, before we continue, you have to remember that we can only integrate sine x, cosine x, and secant square. If you have a tangent x, okay, I'll leave you to think, how do I integrate this? Okay, you can do your own research. I will zoom into question A. So, we are going to integrate this. So remember, when you have these two terms, okay, you can separate the terms, take out the scalar multiple. Okay, so let's continue with the first term. Okay, if I integrate sine 4x, integrate sine will give me negative cosine. Okay, after you integrate the trigo term, you have to divide by the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x here? 4. Yes, divide by 4. Okay, we are done with the first term. Second term, keep the 3 over 4. If I integrate cosine, it will give me sine. So sine half x. Divide by coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x here? Half. I put it below. Don't forget to plus c. Now the last step is simplify everything. My final answer will be this. Okay, and I'm done. For part B, okay, you need to simplify tangent square 3x. And we are going to link it to our identity that we have learned. So we'll link it to this identity over here so that we can change tangent square to secant square. So now if I go back to this, I know that my tangent square is secant square minus 1. Okay, now I'm ready to integrate my result. So let's integrate secant square. Integrate secant square is tangent, keep the angle, divide by coefficient of x. My coefficient of x is 3. Yes. Minus, if I integrate 1, it will give me x. Don't forget the plus c. Okay. Let's simplify this. Bring the 1/3 out. And the reason why I bring the 1/3 out is so that next time it's easier for me to integrate one more time. When we go to part C, okay, remember, you need to know what to integrate. Okay, my hint is that we can only integrate these 3: sine x, cosine x, and secant square. Which one will you use? My cosine square, I can change it to what? Remember, my 1 over cosine square is actually the reciprocal of secant square, right? So what I'll do is I will convert to secant square. After I change it into the form for integration, I know how to integrate secant square. Okay, I'm ready for integration. Okay. Integrate 3x. Okay, it is actually the power plus 1 become 2. Divide by new power, divide by 2. Integrate secant square will give me tangent. And then I will divide by coefficient of x, divide by 6 plus c. Okay, now all is left is to simplify. Okay, at this point, I'm done and this will be the answer. Okay, I will skip A and B because I assume that it should be okay. But C is a good question. Okay, if I integrate tangent square, is it possible to integrate tangent square? Not directly, right? But I will convert it to another form. Alright, so remember the identity. So remember this identity. Okay, because it will be very helpful for this question. Okay, and from tangent square, I can rewrite in terms of secant square minus 1. Okay, why I'm doing this is because I can integrate secant square. That's the reason why I'm converting it. Alright, let's write it in the form secant square. Now that you have converted into the secant square form, you are ready for integration. Because you integrate secant square, what will you get? Tangent x. So integrate secant square, give me tangent. Am I done? After I integrate the Trigo term, what must I do? Divide by who? Coefficient of x. What is my coefficient of x? 2. So divide by 2. Minus, I integrate 1 will give me x. Don't forget the plus c. Okay. Final answer, please simplify it. Bring the fraction to the front. And this will be my answer. Okay, so I'm done.